Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of It's All About the Fuzz. Alongside the co-host, as always, Miss Karen LaPreziosa. What's up, Karen?
Hey, how are you, Pete?
Doing good. Well, I guess we're doing good. Karen and I have been talking for like 15 minutes before we started recording this, how tough of an assignment today's show, this month's show, actually was because
Oh,
I mean, we're dealing with a style of music that the lines are blurred ridiculously, right? So, of course, last month we did our favorite, what we consider are the essential Doom albums that you need to have heard or own, not counting Black Sabbath, right?
right.
That was not that difficult.
It's pretty easy, actually.
Pretty easy, right? Yeah, I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
there's lots to choose from, but picking the kind of our favorites, not that big a deal. So what we decided to do today, because part of this show going forward is all about fuzz music, right? Doom, stoner, heavy psych. That's kind of what we're all about here on this show. And so we decided we were going to do a show where we talk about some of our favorite and what we consider some of the essential stoner heavy psych albums are. Well, that's all fine and dandy until you start thinking about it and trying to figure out, well, what is kind of stoner and
Right.
heavy psych and not pick doom bands, and but some of these bands also do doom and some albums are more psych.
Drone, it's insane. Dirge,
It's nutty. It's
it's crazy.
crazy.
And then I talked to my boyfriend. Maybe he could give me some. I would be like, "What do you think? Is this psych or is it stoner?" And he said, "Oh no, that's more of like drone. I don't know." It was just like this is making everything worse. You're not helping me at all. So it was crazy.
So what we've done is we've just said, fuck it, we're just gonna do the best we can. We realize that some of these bands that we're going to talk about today straddle the line between both, or maybe not much at all. And because I'm looking at my list of stuff here, and I have some bands that don't sound anything like each other at all, and some
Right.
that are kind of in the same camp. And I think we just decided to have fun with this and pick out some, 10 albums that we feel are pretty important, and then we like a lot in this weird kind of stoner heavy psych thing. And again, many of these bands kind of cross over and blur the lines, and that's okay. But both Karen and I agree that we're going to be very, very happy when today's episode is done and we can move on to something less challenging, because this was
Yes.
ridiculous. So for everybody watching, just enjoy. And if you got other stuff that you think are essential albums in this kind of stoner heavy psych mashup type of thing we're going to talk about, put those down in the comments below. We're of course open to ideas, and hopefully you guys will recommend some stuff that maybe we're not aware of or haven't heard. And at the end of this episode we'll talk about what we're doing next month. So I'll let so Karen, why don't we got 10, so why don't we do two at a time? So do your, I guess, 10 and 9, and then we'll go back and forth.
Okay. As I mentioned it before, I kind of have my list more on the psych side, more on the stoner side, and two bands that like kind of straddle them both. So I'm going to go with my first pick for psych and stoner. They're two different categories. And this is all about Al Cisneros. I mean, we have to talk about sleep again. I mean, we have to. And for the psych part, I'm going to go with Ohm Pilgrimage. And it's very psych. And some people listen to it and be like, okay, where's the fuzz? And it kicks in, trust me, especially in Unitive Knowledge of the Godhead is the song that I found the most or doomy-ish. But it's very stoner at the same time because um it's psychedelic, but there's a lot of chanting, there's a lot of spiritual feel about it. Everything Ohm does, and it's kind of telling because when Sleep broke up, the rhythm section, which is Al Cisneros and Chris Kyuss, I think that's how you say his name, went on to form Ohm, and it's just drum and bass. And then Chris eventually left and became a monk. So I mean, it's very spiritual. So yeah, I'm just touching upon that one. Then for stoner, I'm going to go back with Al Cisneros and the spiritualness of it all, and I'm going to say Dope Smoker from Sleep. And you have to say Dope Smoker because it's all about those guys, the Weedians, who, I mean, the first lyrics are drop out of life with bong in hand. I mean, that's the stoner. But because I thought that you might pick that as well, and it's such an obvious pick, I'm going to go with also mention the Sciences from Sleep,
Oh
which
yeah.
is very marijuana worship. It's spiritual and about weed at the same time. I think Giza Butler is a great example about that, of that marijuana not I don't know. That's so yeah,
One
Om
of the great
and
comeback
Sleep.
albums of the last 20 years, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I really wish Om would release something new. They released a couple of singles since their last studio album, which is Aviatic Sounds, I believe. But yeah, I really want to see something new from Om and Sleep. So Al, I don't know, you're smoking too much weed, you're sitting on your butt smoking bongs. Get into action, man. Like do something good. Have a cup of coffee. How's that?
And the funny thing is like I think originally this whole idea of stoner rock or stoner metal had all to do with marijuana and actually getting stoned. That's what it was all about. Heavy music
Right.
to get stoned to. But over time, it's like, there's a lot of bands that come out that call themselves stoner bands, but they don't play up that whole aspect of it. It's more like music, kind of trippy music to chill out to type of thing, right? To
Right.
be in that zone with or without the weed aspect,
Yeah.
right? So, all right. So yeah, my shit's all over the place, but that's whatever. So my number 10 to me is one of the great stoner albums of all time. It probably, if I was really ranking these according to preference, this would be way up at the top or close to it. But I'm gonna go with Down Nola. And
Oh,
I mean, right there, what does that tell you?
I
This is all about the weed, this album, right? This
you
is
know, I was like, should I? Should I? It was another one I agonized over. Go for it. You talk about it. Tell
because I
everybody.
mean, there's no psychedelic anything on this album, but this is
Right.
all about the big doominess and the whole weed aspect of it. And
Mm,
there's some great stuff on here. Of course, this is the super group, the kind of New Orleans super group. You got Phil Anselmo from
right.
Pantera. You got Pepper Keenan from Corrosion of Conformity. You got Kirk
Mhm.
Weinstein and Todd Strange from Crowbar. You got Jimmy Bower on here. It's kind of like southern doomy sludge metal, terrific stuff. I mean, just go listen to Temptations Wings,
Mm.
Hail the Leaf, Lifer, The Incredible Stone the Crow, Rehab, Losing All, Pillars of Eternity. The whole album is an absolute classic. It's all about the weed, and the riffs are just outrageous. The production is killer. I mean, when the first time I heard this album, I was like,
I
wow.
know, right? I was like, this is Phil Anselmo. Was never the biggest Pantera fan, but like, and I agonized over that one. I was like, it's a super group. Should I do it? But you know what? You were 100% right to put that on
I
there.
had to include him because
Yeah,
we're talking
absolutely.
about favorites. It's one of my favorites. All right.
Yeah.
All right, so now my number 9, I'm going to go totally in a different direction from that. So kind of like what Karen was saying, maybe she's got like one kind of more heavy psych and one that's more stoner. This next band, they fit in all categories and they don't. The band is called Elder. The album is Lore,
Oh,
2015.
nice.
I love this
Mhm.
album. It's their third
Mhm.
album, and here this is an interesting band because they blend the big stoner doomy riffs with lots of psych and lots of prog, huge gargantuan riffage, complex lead guitars, long trippy songs, nice use of synthesizers. You got Compendium is a great track. Legend is another one. The title track is so diverse. You got Spirit of Aphelion. Excellent stuff. So much diversity on this album, but still very heavy, very cool, very trippy. I think any heavy and hard psych collection would be completely missing having anything from Elder. Every album is great. Their first and second albums are really heavy and much
Right.
more on the stoner doom side. This is kind of the album that started them much more into the heavy psych style. But yeah, Lore by Elder is my number 9. Back to
Okay. All right. I'm gonna go with for on the psych side, I'm gonna go with Earthless. And oh my goodness.
you can pick any album.
I know, but my
Anything.
favorite is Rhythms from the Cosmic Sky. I think it's 3 songs, it's 45 minutes, a lot of soloing, which is something I'm not the best, you know, but I love it and it's super trippy, fuzzy, I believe there's some prog elements. I mean, they're just
Oh yeah, yeah.
playing. You know what I mean? It's like they're really good musicians. And 3 songs, 45 minutes. And this is a Ramones fan right here. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love this record. I absolutely love this
So for
record.
everybody watching and watches both of us on the Hudson Valley Squares, how many times have you heard Karen state on the Hudson Valley Squares how much she doesn't like shredding? And yet,
Yeah,
Earthless is all
Earthless.
about
I know.
like shredding, yeah, but
It
in a
is.
really different way.
Right. It's like it takes you on a trip. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
just it's 3 songs, but it can all be one, if you ask me.
Yeah.
And I
Isaiah
I love
Mitchell,
that
man,
album.
what a guitar player! Isaiah is so good. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a trio, right? I
yep,
mean,
yep.
where were
Great
and
choice.
I'm thinking of somebody else, but yeah, Earthless, I really like it, and the artwork is great. It's very trippy, and I can't like name songs or band members because I just put on the record and then there it goes. But I anything Earthless is very psychedelic and really groovy. That's a
Yep.
good word for it.
I applaud that choice.
Thank you.
More on that later.
I'm gonna go for the stoner. I'm gonna go for Windhand, Eternal Return.
Oh wow, that's a classic. Yeah, yeah.
I really like it. It's stoner, but it's very the lyrics are spacey. The vocals are very dreamy. I mean, is it psychedelic or is it stoner or is it both?
It's both. Yeah.
That's what I think, and I think they're a great band, and everybody should check them out. And that's my favorite one out of Windhand. Windhand. Female singer, which is one thing I absolutely love about this genre is very female friendly, and women play a prominent part in this kind of music. I dig it. I mean, Ruby the Hatchet is another example. They're great. Anyway, so that's what I have about that. And
Good choice. All right.
yeah, thank you.
My number 8 is a fairly recent album. It's from 2021. I could have picked
Yeah.
any one of their albums. This band's been around for a little bit. They are from New York, upstate New York. The band is King Buffalo. Burden,
Yes.
Restlessness. I love this album.
Awesome.
Uh,
I know you like them.
I like this band a lot, and I really dig this album. And this is probably my favorite from them. But I was like, do I pick my favorite or do I pick the one that I would recommend to people new to the band? I'm like, I'm gonna recommend this one. This is my favorite.
That's what I do.
So again, it's one of their more recent albums. They released 2 albums in 2021. This one and Asheron, which, all right, it doesn't get more psych than going to record an album in Howe Caverns. Did you ever heard this story?
No.
So what they did was they wanted to record an album in a really unique place, and because they're from upstate, they decided to go and bring all of their equipment. Of course, they paid the state or whoever runs Howe Caverns, which is kind of like a tourist attraction for those who don't know how caverns are. It is a caverns underground in near Cooperstown, New York. And it's like there's like an underground river, and it's just I haven't been there since I was a kid. It's the coolest
All
shit.
these like trippy lights, like on the
Yeah, exactly. It's on its own, it's bizarre. So but very cool. So just imagine you're King Buffalo, and these 3 guys took all of their amps and all their equipment down, 100 feet below the ground, and recorded a whole album and videotaped it as well. That's what they did. So that's not this
album.
album.
How did they get that sound? I mean, Howe Caverns is a freaking cavern. I can't imagine it.
Yeah, I don't know. There's nothing cooler than that. So anyway, so they are part of this kind of like new breed of heavy psych stoner bands. And just got big killer lumbering riffs, great psychedelic lead guitar solos, really cool vocals, and lots of interesting synth soundscapes. Go check out from this album. Burning is great. Locust is really good. Silverfish and the Knocks, they all completely crush. But this is definitely also music to kind of really trip out to. And if you partake in what we're talking about, this is the band for you. So it's heavy, trippy, psychedelic stuff. King Buffalo, Burden of Restlessness. And I gotta agree with Karen 100%. You gotta pick Earthless. I love this band. I picked From the Ages from 2013, their 3rd album. You can pick any of them. They're all great. And I would tell people who are looking to get into Earthless, they've got like 3 live albums. The live albums kill. These guys go out to the desert and record live albums. It's crazy, right? Big. All right, this is what I say this every time I talk about this band, but you have to. Earthless is like Jimi Hendrix jamming with Geezer Butler and Bill Ward.
Yes, that's an excellent analogy. Very, very true. I
Yeah,
mean, there's a lot of strong elements of Hendrix in there, and
yeah.
maybe that's why I dig the solo so much.
Yeah, it just, and this album here has 4 songs,
Yeah.
and it's all instrumental, long guitar freakouts, and the riffs are big and heavy and
Mm,
mean. And then he goes and Isaiah Mitchell starts soloing, and like it goes on forever, but you don't want it to end.
yeah.
I mean, it's just wonderful, wonderful stuff. The rhythms are pummeling. For those watching, if you haven't heard this album, check out Uluru Rock. It's spelled Uluru Rock. Amazing. Violence of the Red Sea and the title track, mind-blowing heavy psychedelia. You will love it. So I can't highly recommend Earthless enough. Such a great band. And with that, I'll turn it back to Karen.
Yeah, and they don't sing a lot. On occasion, there's
Yeah, they have the one album that's got mostly vocals, but all the other albums are pretty much all instrumental. There's
instrumental.
a vocal here and there, but yeah, it's they don't need to sing. It's like,
No, I don't think so.
vocals is fine too, but I'd rather just hear Isaiah go to freaking Venus with his guitar solo.
Yeah. Now, all right, just to complicate things a little bit, is Earthless desert?
I
No.
don't. We didn't even talk about that, right?
I
Desert
know.
rock, right? Yeah, I don't know.
I know,
It's rock, desert
speaking of
rock.
desert
I don't
rock,
know. I couldn't tell
yeah.
you. I don't know. Quite
I
frankly,
also
there's
want
a
to
lot of
say,
bands that are called desert rock that don't sound any different from any event we're talking about today. So I don't know. Maybe it's where they're from. I guess if you're from Arizona or Nevada, you call yourself desert rock and you play this kind of music. I don't know. I don't know.
what about the truck fighters? I mean, we could get into all this. I mean,
Yeah.
I also want to say about King Buffalo before I move on that I saw them with Uncle Acid and the Deadbeats, and that's when I really, really got into them. I mean, I heard them, in the background. I never really put them on, and they tend to be like they were jammy, but I loved it. I loved it. They were so good, and I was just so disappointed in the crowd that whole night in
Oh,
general.
really?
But it was a great show. It was a great show, and I was so glad I got to see them live. They were great.
I would imagine, as much as I love King Buffalo on album, I bet you live they're incredible. I would love to see
They
them.
are.
I had a chance to see him live a couple months ago. I couldn't make it happen. So
They'll be around
yeah,
again.
they'll be around. Yeah, I had him on the channel a couple months ago. He goes, "Yeah, we tour all the time. You'll get a chance." I'm like, "All right, cool." So
Cool. Um, I'm gonna go for the Psych. I'm gonna say Nebula.
yeah,
Now, I love Nebula, but I'm not going by the best album. I'm going by my favorite, and my favorite right now is the last one that they put out, Transmissions from Mother Earth. This is very psychedelic, but my favorite song from this is I Got So High. And it's like very trippy vocals. I don't know. Nebula, even the cover art it's very psychedelic, very, very. This was released in 2022. I wish I could be a little bit more expressive, but sometimes when I get on these shows, I just like freeze. But I recommend Nebula. Like they're great. They're great. So are they psych? Or are they stoner? They're singing about getting high. I got so
there you
high.
go.
I mean,
Many
it's
people,
like
that's all you need to do, right?
exactly. And is this the best one to introduce people? Is this their classic one? This is my favorite one. My
That's
favorite.
what it's all about. Yeah.
And also, I mentioned desert before, and there's going to be a lot of people who say, "Oh, Kyuss and Queens of the New Stone Age, they invented it." But honestly, I'm not fans of that. So I'm not going to bring it up. Yeah, they might have been the catalysts for stoner or whatever, but wasn't Sabbath. I mean, so I don't know. It's just not something I listen to a lot. Like I like a few songs. So I recognize that I'm not talking about them. And for stoner, uh I'm gonna go with Bongzilla.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Okay, now this is super heavy. And this has
Yeah.
I mean like is this psych? I don't see any how do you blur these lines, but this is very cut and dry to me. There's not a lot of like, elements to it. Bongzilla, my favorite is Gateway from 2002. My favorite song is Green Thumb. It's a great album. Every song title is a reference to smoking weed.
Yeah.
Everything, every album title, every song from everything this band has ever done. Wisconsin. Okay, they're from Wisconsin. It's Wisconsin. It's a great, super heavy. The vocals aren't exactly clean, but
No.
they're not too rough either. I think most people who like around thrash metal-ish vocals. Um, I dig it. I like it a lot. It's really heavy. It's like freaking cement soaked in resin, just like
Soaked in grime and
yeah,
resin.
scrape up that bong, all that resin from the
The
bong, and
water
like
that hasn't been changed in like 4
yeah,
months, right? It's like brown and cloudy. You're like, ugh.
just
Yeah.
put it on my back. Like, oh, it's so good, so heavy. I really dig it. So, and we're talking about stoner, so Bongzilla. There you
Yeah,
go.
might be one of the heaviest bands we talk about today, arguably, or one of the top 2 or 3 for sure. Yeah,
But it could be so interchangeable. There's
yeah, for sure, for
Dope
sure.
Throne. I mean, so many dopey bands.
Yep, yep. All right, my number 6. Karen's already mentioned him. I had to as well. I'm going with "Dope Smoker" by Sleep, 1999. I mean, yeah, it's got to be here. Again, Sleep.
Has to.
They're doom, but they talk and sing about weed and whatnot. And this is like one of the trippiest, heaviest albums ever. Right? It's an hour long of slow, ponderous riffs and feedback, wave and wave of fuzz and distortion. Light up, let them take you away.
Right on.
Matt, Alan, Chris, I mean, that just take you on a journey into Weedville. I mean, it's just, look at the guys walking on the desert with the hookahs, and yeah, it's,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
had to talk about that one today.
The Weedians.
Yeah.
Also, that record was so stressful for them that they broke up right after it. They couldn't get somebody to release it. London wouldn't release it, but it kind of makes sense that Cisneros and Chris Kyuss, whatever, went on to do Ohm and explore that more spiritual side. I mean, the record is about these Weedians going through the desert. I mean, it's a spiritual being, like some kind of pilgrimage. So it's pretty cool. I just
It's a
love
cool
that
album. It's
album.
not an everyday listen though. I mean, that's not
No.
gonna be in the mood and I can understand why the record labels were probably like, yeah, do
Oh yeah, like
you really want to
darn
release,
it.
because originally it was called Jerusalem, right? Do you really want to
Right.
release a 1 song, hour-long album titled Jerusalem, all about weed and whatnot? And so it got released under both names. Yeah, it's a big mess, the whole story behind it, but it is really cool. It's very different. Only a band like Sleep could do an album like that, I
Right
think.
on. And there's 3 versions of it. One's on Southern Lord, one's on TP, and one is on Third Man, I believe. But the one that they say that they feel is the closest to their vision is TP. So, and I don't know if it's out of print, but
I
it's
don't know.
not.
This is the Southern Lord version, so
Hmm.
it just sounds great to me. I haven't kind of like compared them all. And
Yeah, yeah.
it's all good. Yeah, it's very confusing. All right, my number 5. Karen mentioned them before. I like this band. I know they're heralded as one of the kind of leaders of what we're talking about, stoner, and Karen mentioned desert rock, and I like this band way more than the offshoot band that came from this, and that's Kyuss.
Yeah.
Blues for the Red Sun from 1992. So we're going pretty early back. This is their second album.
Right.
I much prefer Kyuss over Queens of the Stone Age. I don't dislike Queens of the Stone Age, but I haven't heard a ton that I really love. I do like some of it. Here you got this great singer named John Garcia, who kind of sounds like a stoner version of James Hetfield. I really like that. You got Josh
Yeah.
the guitar player, who of course went on to form Queens of the Stone Age. Big fat riffing on here. A lot of times it's good galloping riffs. You got a song called Thumb, which kicks all sorts of ass. Green Machine cranks. There's some moody stuff, some atmospheric stuff. You get hazy, kind of like weed drenched tracks like Molten Universe. The Thong song is fun. 50 Million Year Trip is lots of fun, lots of fuzz on that. I only just really started listening to these guys like a year ago. I kind of ignored Kyuss for many, many years, but I think this is it's my favorite album of theirs. Not all their albums are great through and through, but they have lots of good material on them, and I think this one is by far the best. So yeah, Blues for the Red Sun, 1992 from Kyuss. That's my number 5.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know if I like Kyuss or not. It's just that I just never got around to listening to them. Like I
Yeah,
was so
I mean, there's
immersed
so
in
many
them.
bands, right? There's so
Yeah.
many.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay, so I'm gonna go with an old school band for the Psych part, and this is Hawkwind. I love their live album. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Space Ritual. I dig it. It's spacey. It's the best. It's like a perfect example to me of psych rock, and I felt like it was appropriate, even though it's older and maybe it predates this subgenre. I think it's perfect. It's from 1973, I think. My
Yeah,
favorite
I think it's
song
the
is
73.
"Born to Go." And I'm curious, was Lemmy on that record?
Yep. Yep.
He was. Awesome. Okay. It makes it even better. I wasn't sure. But, they didn't play Silver Machine on that record, which is, I was a little bummed out about. But I do love that album. It's great to put on and go about your day. And the next 1 minute you hear, like, I don't know, there's a lot of spoken word in it, right? Like
Yeah, yeah, there is.
it gets a little weird, and
It's
it
not
might
a
not
little weird. It's a lot of weird. Yeah. It's
it,
great, but yeah,
it might not be it might be in the sense like Dope Smoker, not your everyday listen, but I like it and it's cool. So it's spacey, trippy,
Oh
and
yeah.
if you smoke to it, it's even better.
It's
So
pretty heavy in spots too. Yeah.
yes, very heavy in spots. Yeah. So
That's a
and
great
then
choice. I ultimately decided not to go with Hawkwind, but I'm glad you did because I think it really fits here. And
I do
I,
too.
I bet you if you ask any of these bands if they were ever influenced by Hawkwind, I'm sure most of them would say yes. So
Right.
perfect choice.
I remember when I was younger, because Lemmy was in the band, I wanted to listen to him. I'm like, what the hell is this hippie shit? I don't want nothing to do with that. And I get mad at myself because when I was younger, I was very so set in my ways and my musical genres that I totally focused on, and I missed out on a lot of good stuff. So yeah, I mean, I just recently got into Hawkwind maybe like 5 years ago or so.
Yeah,
But,
Hawkwind's great. A lot of great albums. A lot of great albums.
so my next one is a total contradiction to this. This is another super heavy stoner band, and the only reason why they're considered, in my opinion, a stoner band is because they sing about weed, and the name of the band is Weedeater.
Oh,
Good luck and Godspeed. The vocals are very harsh. Um, they're super heavy. I still like Bongzilla better. I think they're a little bit easier to digest, but like Wizard Fight is a great song, and it's just like pow pow. You can just get hit. Like the riffs are so, I don't know. They're fast. They're not too dirgy, and I just, to me, when it comes to these stoner bands, and I'm trying. This was a very difficult part. Which stoner band do I choose? Do I want to talk about Electric Wizard again? Do I want to talk about Dope Throne? Nah, I don't know. I like Bongzilla better. I mean, to me, what makes them a stoner band is just the lyrics. Um, so I went with stoner bands that I've been listening to of late. I don't know if this is the best record to get into with it, but it's what I really like. Good luck and Godspeed, and Wizard Fight. Yeah, it's the best. It's just fun. I don't know.
anyone else like when Karen was mimicking getting pounded and her head was shaking, the camera
Yeah.
went with her? It's like you got to feel like someone was really going.
I tell you, my vocabulary vanishes when I get on the show for whatever reason. I don't know why. Extraness, right? So
Extraness. All right, so my next choice, this band went on and off my list a couple of times. And just because I'm kind of like, man, are they more doom? Are they seriously stoner? This album really isn't a psych album at all. It's definitely really heavy. It's definitely doomy, but I think enough people call this band a stoner band. I was like, screw it. And then I was going
right.
to pick another album, which is a little more psych, but then ultimately I said, well, I want to go with my favorite album by them. And the band is No More as of recently. The Sword, Gods of the Earth from 2008.
Oh, love them. Yeah. I struggled about that putting on my list.
I did
Yeah.
too. And ultimately I said, fuck it, we can do whatever we want. So I
Right
decided
on.
to put it on here. Yeah, I mean, just massive, massive wall of crunch and fuzz and distortion.
Absolutely.
And like I said, you could say that their later albums had way more psychedelic influences, right?
Oh,
But
absolutely.
early
Yeah.
on, big brontosaurus riffing, great lead guitars. I mean, The Frost Giant's Daughters is such a great song. How Heavy This Axe, Killer,
Oh my God, yeah.
Under
Such a
the
good one.
Bows. I mean, every song on here is just immense. And
Mhm.
I said, you know what? I'm just going to include them on here. They're a little bit different than some of these other bands, but I don't care. I think that most people wouldn't argue that they're a doomy stoner band. And so
Right.
The Sword has got to be here. Gods of the Earth, that's my number 4. And my number 3 is a band, again, I always knew about. I had heard stuff here and there, but I never really started getting into until recently. And sometimes they say, Karen, better late than never, right? This
Right.
band is so much fun. And they're one of, I think, the pillars of the stoner movement. And some people would call them desert rock. I'm talking about Fu Manchu,
Okay.
In Search Of from 1996. I want to thank Craig Kaminsky for really being the one to kind of turn me on to these guys. This is their
Yeah.
third album. Man, fuzz riffs to die for. Every song, and the songs are short,
Right.
up tempo, and just, man, the fuzz is like in your face. And I always joke when I talk about these guys of late that to me, they're kind of like, this is like California skateboardy tough guy stoner music, right?
Yeah.
The vocals have this like attitude to them. It's really interesting. But there's tons of groove, like really fat grooves, and these songs just kick your ass. Regal Beagle, Missing Link, Asphalt Rising, Red Line, Stratostreak. And this band just sounds so California. Like they
Oh,
sound nothing
absolutely.
like, right? I mean, I don't know what it is. Like,
It's
how does a
desert.
band
They
sound
consider
California?
it.
I don't know. It just
Yeah.
even if I knew they weren't from, even if I didn't know they were from California, I'd still say they sound like they're from California. Why? I don't know, but it makes sense to me. Screaming wah wah guitar solos. Like I said, the vocals are packed with attitude, nonstop fuzz riffs. Terrific album, really good band. In
Very rock
Search
and
Of.
roll.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's
So
very rock and roll. And actually, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, 2 of those members went on to form Nebula.
I think you are correct. Yeah, the earlier members. Yep, yep, I believe so.
Mhm,
Yep.
mhm. Yeah, that is okay. So I understand, from my understanding, Fu Manchu is desert. I don't get it. It is. I don't get it. I could kind of see it a little bit, but like the difference, I see the difference more between desert than stoner and psych, because stoner, to me, it's about the lyrics or whatever, but desert, desert tends to be a little bit faster, a lot more rock and roll, and but yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, there's
Good stuff.
definitely no psych in Fu Manchu.
No.
No,
Mm-mm.
so so yeah, this is, a lot of people call them stoner, but whatever this desert rock thing is that some bands get classified as, I guess they're kind of more of that. I mean, that's why we said, everybody, that we're going to be, this stuff kind of all blurs the line. So this stuff here that, doesn't sound like
Yeah,
anything else and whatever. It's
I
the
kind of
important
like.
thing is we're talking about it. That's all that really.
Yeah, I know nobody else seems to be,
No.
and I'm glad we are. Uh, I just want to say one thing about Fu Manchu and that kind of desert, is that to me it always sounded like, take the MC5, fill out their sound where it's really thick and they got that heavy sound, and then slow it down. And that, but not too much, but enough where it's like a slowed down, thicker MC5. It's very rock and roll. It's pretty fucking cool. I like it a lot.
Well, you're on an interesting point there, because especially talking about the MC5, because many people cite the MC5 as the first kind of punk band, right?
Proto
There is
punk for
that
sure.
sort of early punk flavor to their music,
Yeah.
and you hear that in these guys.
Oh,
It's almost like
absolutely.
the MC5 meets Black Sabbath, right? But
Right.
a little bit. Yeah,
Excellent.
yeah,
Excellent way to put it. MC5 meets Black Sabbath. Yeah.
yeah.
Thicken them up, slow them down, and you got
That's it.
desert.
I guess, right?
Right. Okay, so
Top 2.
I'm gonna go with, yeah, these two are I'm very comfortable talking about these two, and I feel like they, especially, it's Cadaver and Uncle Acid and Deadbeats. I feel like they both straddle those lines between stoner and psych. More so, I think Cadaver was better at that when their first, earlier albums. I think the self-titled Purple Sage, I think those are excellent examples of psych, and I hesitate to say stoner, but stoners dig psych, So
Yeah,
like a perfect marriage of that is, I feel, Kadavar and
And they had the look too, right? I mean, here you got these German guys who are wearing clothes that look like it came out in 1972.
If that could be even
Yeah.
like 67.
Yeah, you're right. Further
Like,
back,
or
yeah.
Woodstock era, you know?
And it's
That's all
really cool
gone.
when you go on the Kadavar excursion, because like you start from the first album and all the way to their most recent album, and you're like, one doesn't sound anything like the other, right? And they
Nope.
along the way you can hear the evolution, and all of a sudden, like their last two albums are like deep psych and even prog to it, space rock to an extent, whereas the first albums are total stoner, you know, up tempo, just more rock, and there's even a little doom on the first two albums. But yeah, Kadaver's a terrific band. Terrific band.
Absolutely. And you know, I don't see them coming back to the States anytime soon. But if you're in Europe, they've been touring extensively. Go see them. If you're in the States, just keep an eye out open, because they are some of the best shows I've ever seen. Or Kadaver. I love them. I love them. They're weird, and they're kind of even weirder now. I don't know how much I like the new lineup and the new look of the band. It's a little, for me, off-putting, but that's okay. If I close my eyes, their songs are still going to sound the same, you know.
Yeah, and
Their
if you
first
haven't
album
heard it,
was
I don't know if you heard of Karen, and those watching, Kadaver and Elder did a joint album together 2 years ago during the pandemic called Eldavar.
Yeah,
great. They basically just
it is a good
they were
one.
recording in the same studio, and they decided to just get together and do an album together. It's really good. It's really good.
Yeah, and they played a couple shows together actually since then. Was that during the pandemic,
I
or
think
was
it
that
was.
right
Yeah.
after?
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, the pandemic really messed with Kadaver's heads. They had a festival all set up, and it was canceled. Like, they lost a ton of money, and they were struggling. And I think that album that they did, I forget the name of it, the one that they released during the pandemic, it really is very personal, and the lyrics
Oh
demonstrate
yeah,
that.
that's the space rock album. Do you want to blank on
Mhm.
the name of it? Yeah, it's a really weird album. I was a little shocked when I first heard that album.
Me
I'm like,
too.
oh, this is Kadaver. I'm like, holy cow, this
I
is really
know.
different.
It's
It's
like,
actually really good, but yeah, it's just really different.
I had to listen to it a few times. At first, I was like, "Oh man, is this the direction they're going in?" Because I love that hard rock Cadaver. It's like a perfect band for me. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I
Kadaver's
so
great.
yeah, if you guys have a chance, go see them. Don't snooze on it. Do it. And then I'm going to talk about Uncle Acid and the Deadbeats, another band I'm very comfortable talking about because I love them. I'm going to choose Bloodlust. It's my favorite. I think Volume 1 might be a little bit more psychedelic and it's a lot more raw, but I just like the songwriting better on Bloodlust. And I mean, they're they're different enough. Like, they sound like nobody else because of the vocals, but at the same time they lean heavy on uh, Sabbath, of course. A lot of their imagery and it is and their song lyrics are taken from old horror movies. So
Yeah, yeah.
they borrow heavy on that, but I still love them, and I just think it's great. And they're different, and they I've heard this expression a million times, but I think it applies. It's like the Beatles meet Sabbath. The vocals are very melodic. There's a lot of harmonies that's very reminiscent about the Beatles,
Yeah.
and it sounds really spooky when you listen to the lyrics, like "I'm here to kill you," and it's like, you know, in that falsetto voice. It's really cool. I love Uncle Acid, another fabulous band live, and they don't take schlubs out on the road with them. Every time I've seen them, they have a great bill with it. Once with Graveyard, once with King Buffalo. I say Bloodlust is a great record. Great record. And
Yeah, I don't think they've ever put out a bad one.
no, I don't think so either.
Their music is really fun. It's heavy, but and you said it perfectly. Black Sabbath meets the Beatles. I would throw the Move in there as well,
Oh yeah.
because
Yeah, yeah.
they got this like late '60s kind of like psych pop thing going on. You know, the Move were an
Right.
interesting band because they
Right.
did like pop and early heavy rock and prog and psych, and it just but they love the Beatles, and their music is kind of as dark as some of the lyrics are. There's kind of like a whimsicalness of the band
Yes.
that I really like a lot, you know, but they're so heavy. And the early albums are more riffy. I think the later albums,
Right.
they use a lot of different instruments and keyboards and things like that. But yeah, Uncle Acid
Right.
is a
Right.
great band.
That's why
I
I
would
think
say
Volume 1.
totally different genre, but I would say that for folks who like the kind of weird mix of styles that like Ghost does,
Yeah.
probably would like Uncle Acid and the Den Beats, because again, they don't sound, they're totally different band, totally different style of music, but there is a certain like lightheartedness that both bands bring to their style of music that I think is kind of similar. I know it may not make much sense to some people because, like I said, that Ghost does not sound like Uncle Acid. But whenever I listen to both bands, they each are utilizing these kind of cool influences from the same era, but in a different way. If that makes any sense. I don't know.
It does, and I think Ghost's first, was it the first EP? Was it the EP they put out first? Like
the first album,
yeah, is very is very much like what you were saying as far as like Uncle Acid. It's heavier, and it kind of annoys me that a lot of metalheads like turn their backs on Uncle Acid and Kadavar, which really, I think they're losing out. But look, the irony of me saying this. But I just think they're great, and yeah, Uncle Acid is very trippy, very different. Now I say it's stoner and psych. I think it's more on the psych metal side, but why? Because they throw a theremin in there every once in a while. I don't know. The first album, Volume 1, is very much more psychedelic, but I prefer Bloodlust. But all the records are great, just like Pete said. So maybe I can't narrow it down to one album, but that's
no.
what
I mean, I think most people kind of go with Bloodlust as like their strongest, but that's all people, right? It's all based on preference. I think all their albums are really, really good.
As do I.
Great riffs, man, and they definitely subscribe to the whole Tony Iommi school of riffing in their music.
Oh yeah.
And that's what's cool. So you got these big lumbering kind of doomy riffs with this kind of lighthearted kind of Beatles-ish pop harmonies and things like that. It's very, very cool music. Very cool.
Also, live, they're way more psychedelic. The backdrops, the weird imagery, like a lot of 60s occult psychedelia. You know what I mean? Like that real weird dark shit. Like, yeah. So again, I see them live. If you get a chance, it's a great experience.
Cool. Yeah, I've never seen them live, so I would like to. I had one chance to see them the last time they came around, and I just couldn't make it happen. But
that's when they were with King Buffalo.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen that. I would have loved to see. Well, next time I definitely.
Yeah, next time we're going. I'm not taking your financing.
All right, my top two. Again, two albums I really loved quite a bit, and this one here for my number two was released in 1994. It was the fourth album from this band, and this band also had beginnings that really sounded nothing like what they later kind of morphed into. They were originally like a punk hardcore band, and then all of a sudden with their fourth album, which is Deliverance by Corrosion of Conformity, here they turn into this kind of, Sabbath meets Lynyrd Skynyrd type of sludgy, doomy stoner metal, and loads of
like a total 180.
Total 180. I was never really drawn to COC early on because hardcore and punk really was never my thing. But then when I heard this, I was like, holy cow. And Pepper Keenan, who I just love. I love his vocals. I love his guitar playing. Big fat riffs, lots of attitude. Albatross is such a great song. Clean My
Wounds. Such a great song, yeah.
Heaven's Not Overflowing, Migraine, Deliverance, all killer songs. I think most people would agree that you got to mention this album in this episode at some point. So that's my number two.
Absolutely. They totally reinvented themselves. Now I was the hardcore fan. I mean,
I like the early stuff. Yeah,
I love the early stuff. So when that album came out, I was like, fuck out of here. You know what I mean? I didn't want to hear anything about it. And again, I had that closed mind, and I really missed out on a lot of good shit. But yeah, that was preventing me from adding Corrosion of Conformity, because in my mind, it's always COC. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
the hardcore band. So, but it definitely applies. It should be there. So. Albatross is a great tune.
Albatross is amazing. Yeah, amazing. I love the fuzzy guitar tone on this whole album. It's just it's just so good. Yeah, so good. All right, my number one. I could have picked any album from this band, pretty much. I decided though that I was going to go all the way back to the beginning, 1991. Monster Magnet, Spine of God. What a weird fuzzy,
Yes,
high energy, noodly, psych, heavy riff, fuzz everywhere. This is
Monster
such a
Magnet for
great
sure.
album. I almost went with I got them all sitting here. I mean, you can go with any of these. I mean, it's just dopes to infinity,
Hmm.
whatever. They're all great. But Dave Weindorf, of course, is the main guy in this band, and he's got this vision. Pill
Hmm.
Shovel, Medicine, Ozzy, and the title track. It's all good. There's not a bad song on this album. They had bigger albums that sold more, but I really like this kind of like weird, like stoner space rock and biker rock.
Yes,
It's
yeah,
right. It's just dirty, kind of like
yeah,
if Motorhead went pure psychedelic. That's kind of like these guys a little bit, right? It's
right on.
a
Yes,
little bit more accessible, yeah. And the artwork. I mean, look at this. I mean, this triple-rama here. So yeah,
for
I
real.
had to pick a Monster Magnet album. I
Triple
decided to Spine
wrong.
of God from 1991. So
It's so hard to narrow this down.
oh, it's next to impossible. It's next to impossible. So
I like I said, I included Weedeater and Bongzilla strictly because of the stoner element.
yeah,
You know.
yeah. They have. I mean, they're legendary bands in this style of music. So
Hmm.
Box Hill is so heavy and so much fun. They're out of
I
control.
know they really are, and they have a new album coming out actually
Yeah,
at the end
what
of the month.
label are they on now? I don't remember.
I
I
don't
came
even
across. I was
know.
on one of these labels recently, and I saw new Bongzilla. That's right. So yeah, I can't remember which
It's a
one.
larger one. They're definitely
Yeah,
getting more popular.
yeah,
Also,
yeah.
you know what? Desert Fest. Okay, last year I went to Desert Fest. I saw Monster Magnet. I saw Corrosion of Conformity. A lot of these bands that we're talking about today, they were so good. And COC, I just want to say they had Mike Dean on there, and he was, if you're into the hardcore part of it, he was like the crazy bass player, and like he was nuts in the hardcore scene. Like everyone looked to him, and oh, Dean is gone. The band is downhill. He looked a little out of place. But I mean, he was still good. I just wanted to mention that they're really now a stoner doom band, and it was cool to see him, but he didn't need to be there.
Where was that Desert Fest? Where was that at?
Believe it or not, it was in Maspeth, Queens. I don't know if you're familiar with Queens and Maspeth. It's a very industrial area. They had some factory, forget the name of it, what it's called now, but they made it into a great venue. Um, Two different rooms, open air. It was a cool venue. I mean, and not just for music. They had a great stage. High on Fire was the headliner. Red Fang.
Riffing, yeah.
I, it was a big spot. The name escapes me, but it's great for anything like art shows, any kind of music. That
Did it
great
draw a lot
stage.
of people? Was there
A
a lot of
lot
people?
of people. As a matter of fact, it's back there this year with Boris. Okay, it's that's another band we could talk about. But like,
I considered it for this. I mean,
me too.
I considered Boris. I considered the Melvins. I mean, there's
Yeah, me too.
you know, Red Fang. I mean, there's
Yeah,
so many.
exactly.
And
There's so
I
many.
thought about High on Fire, but then I'm like,
They're kind of thrashy.
they're kind of thrashy, right? And it's just
Yeah,
like I ultimately was like, yeah, I love High on Fire, but I'm like, I don't know if they fit here. So
I didn't
will
think
we talk
so.
about them on the show at some point? Perhaps, yeah, but I don't
Probably.
know. I don't know. Yeah, there's so many. Desert Fest. I vision in my mind that something like that should be outdoors, like in a field somewhere, or
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of glad it wasn't because I'm old and I don't want to be in the rain.
well, yeah, yeah.
But it's a great venue because there are definite outdoor spaces, some that are unutilized. Like I'm saying, I could see like a lot of art shows and installations going on. I forget the name of it. I will put it in the comments when I remember
Okay.
it.
Probably
And
two stages, right? And alternating bands. Is that how they were doing it? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, two stages. The smaller stage is in a separate room. And it's like it's a huge old factory complex. It's not, which is very par for the course for Maspeth. It's a very industrial area of Queens. It's
Yeah.
like not very residential. So.
Yeah. I try to avoid Queens. It's like
Ah,
getting
it's
down there.
easier than Brooklyn. I tell you that.
Well, yes, that is true. That is
Much
true.
easier.
Yeah. Still not easy, I don't think, but yeah,
Mm-mm.
yeah, it's like Brooklyn, Long Island. No thanks.
Yeah, right on. Yeah. It's
Cool.
not as hip, especially Maspeth. So.
Yeah. I have relatives in Queens and whatnot, so it's like we get down there every now and then, but So anyway, there you have it, everybody. Our stoner and heavy psych lists, our essential listening, our favorites, that sort of thing. I think Karen and I are both kind of glad that we got this one out of the way.
Yeah.
Now we can actually have some fun with the next one. So speaking of the next one, speaking of labels, so what we're going to be doing quite a bit on this show is we're going to be doing like kind of like little dives into some of the various record labels that release stuff like this, and you know, explore not only bands that we're familiar with, but maybe bands that we're not familiar with that we're going to go check out and then recommend or not to you guys. So for next month's episode, we're going to take a little dive into the Rise Above label. And of course, that is the label set up and formed by Lee Dorian from Cathedral and Napalm Death. And he's got a ton of great bands on that label. He's got Rise Above, which are all the current bands, and Rise Above Relics, which are the reissues of stuff from the vaults and things like that. So what Karen and I are going to do for you next month is we're each going to pick like 3 bands from that label. We're going to go and listen to some of their music if we haven't heard it before, or maybe some of them we have heard already. We're going to kind of talk about 3 bands and 3 of their, you know, an album from each, and why you should or shouldn't be paying attention to these artists and their records, and hopefully ways that you guys can find some new music that you'll fall in love with. So that's what we're going to do next month. So it'll all be about Rise Above Records and a handful of bands that you guys should check out. So stay tuned for that. Karen, any last words before we let everybody go here today?
Uh,
I love throwing Karen on the spot. She's just like, but I wasn't planning on saying anything.
In real life, I'm a lot wittier. But I just think that, yeah, listen to whatever you want. The hell with these stupid definitions. It's all good. It's all out there, and it's more accessible than ever. And keep it fuzzy, okay? That's it.
Right, because that's what kind of that's the glue that holds all this that we're talking about together.
Right.
It's all about that fuzz thing. And no,
Right.
for those of you folks in the UK who are like, I thought you guys were going to do a show on cops and policemen, because I guess called it the fuzz. No, this is all about fuzz. Come on, fuzz, dripping fuzz coming from the guitars and the bass and all that. So yeah,
Right.
So,
It goes back to the 60s.
yes, it did. It totally does. Yeah,
Sure
totally
does. It's all there.
So yeah, so down in the comments below, comments, thoughts on any of these bands and albums we've talked about today, as well as some of your favorite stoner and heavy psych albums. And stay tuned next month where we do a little deep dive into Rise Above Records. Till then, visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, all together.
All the damn.
That's right. For Karen LaPreziosa, LaPrez, right?
That's it.
Specialness. That's right. Extraness. Karen with the extraness. I am Pete Pardo. Thanks for watching, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll see you next month here on It's All About the Fuzz, and tune in a week from Monday night for both of us once again with the Hudson Valley Squares. Till then, Karen, I am Pete. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. Take care.